And this looks like the final step of the physical assembly of the 3D printer itself. The electronics come next. Yeah, so we're installing the hotbed. So you need four 30 mil long M3 screws, 4 springs, 4 wing nuts, and your hotbed. Now I just have to say, before we go on with this step, the hotbed is impressive. So for my other 3D printer build, I ordered a hotbed, but it was a kind of FR4 PCB. This is a thick aluminum PCB with a temperature probe in the middle here. This thing is heavy, and I feel like this is a way better hotbed than the FR4 ones are. Maybe the FR4 ones are good if they're combined with glass, but you can always put a glass sheet on top of this as well. So I don't know if you can see the corners there. I think you can, right up here. So I believe the deal is you put these springs on all 4 corners. Also make sure that your M3 bolts are the ones with the countersunk heads, or the flat heads and not the button heads. So I think you put the 4 springs. I'm not sure how well this is going to go, but give it a try. 2, 3, and 4. And then you put your 4 screws sort of in the corners of the heat bed. The instructions don't actually tell you how to do this, they just say do it. So this is how I'm going to try it. I'm doing this live the first time. Okay, I'm going to take the wires, I'm going to shove it towards the back of the printer. And then, oh, see, I already knocked a spring off. That's not a good thing. Oh, knocked another one off. Also not a good thing. I think I'm going to lose the plot here. I'm going to set this down on top of the springs that are still there in an attempt to salvage what I had set up. So pick up the springs, put them in there. This is, again, this is a step that seems like it would be easier in at another point in time in the build, when there's not as much stuff and you can flip this around, because I don't think the whole printer needed to be built before you install these pieces, you know what I mean? So there we go. So now one missing. All 4 are in their holes, and now I should be able to just reach underneath and thread these wing nuts on. I could see a flaw with this design, that yes, I have the wing nuts. Wing nuts are easily adjusted by hand, which is great, but I also have screw heads. Why wouldn't they put this into some sort of locking mechanism that kept these bolts from moving, so that I could use the wing nuts properly? Because I mean, the point of wing nuts is to be toolless, correct? But if you need a tool to spin the other end, kind of, what's the point? I think there's a better design to be had here, but I'm going to install it like this and we'll see how it works. I did see a few reviews the other day on this machine, and they were a little critical about the things that I found I didn't like the tensioning mechanisms, for example. So maybe we have the same ideas. I did see on Thingiverse as well, there's a lot of upgraded parts, so that's going to be exciting to try to print. It's great when the community picks up a design like this and makes it better. Okay, so that's installed. I put the wires towards the back because I think that's the cleanest way to go. I wish there was some way to secure these wires to the bed, but I guess that's an issue for another day. So let's move on. And finally, we're moving on to the electronics build, which is great. That means the physical build's done, everything's good to go, only have to do the electronics. So they give you this plate and this power supply. Now for the power supply, you got to make sure that you select your country's voltage. North America for me, so move that switch that way. Although I think you have an ability to do it while the machine is assembled, I wouldn't trust that. How about that? So now I'm going to flip this over like this. I'm going to put this on top, and it looks like the connections go over that way. So let's see if we can line up the holes here. Oh, they line up almost just right. I think you're supposed to put, 4 screws into there. Let's see if I can manage that. 1, 2, 3. This one's not lined up though. Is there not a hole there? There's one back here. It's kind of offset. I think this power supply is not exactly the same that was spec'd, which is why I suspect this isn't a original TronXY kit. So let's see, one, can I get that one to line up? This way, can I get any to line up? Nope. 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 Oh, just barely here. So I think the best I can do is 3 holes to line up. So you're supposed to use these shorter ones, shorter M3 by 10. Hopefully I'm not going to regret this, because they do seem pretty long. I don't know about this, you guys. So 1, 2, and it looks like my maximum will be 3 holes lined up. It's odd because this one is not lined up. It almost seems as though this thing's going to be crooked. Whoops, is that a long one? No, it's not a long one. I'm just going to cinch these down, not very tight. This would be nice if they had washers too, because this is just going straight into acrylic, and it's very small head. The M3 screws, very small. So let me flip this over and see what it looks like. So it does actually look pretty close to lined up, because the distance here looks pretty close to the distance here. Let's see. Roughly almost 14 mils on that side. Do the other. Yeah, okay, so it's not crooked. I think this power supply will only accept these 3 screws, which is fine. I just want to know. Looks like they have a few other holes that can't possibly do anything else except for hold the power supply, so maybe that's just one of the things where you get which power supply you get. And it does seem like this is reversed. Oh no. Yeah, it seems like this is reversed to what I see on the instructions. So maybe this was upside down. Let me do this again. Take these out. I'll tell you, the instructions are not very clear. It shows a bunch of holes, like these holes, but it doesn't show very much else. Okay, so if I flip this over, let's see if the holes line up better now. Not particularly. I get 3 again? 1, 2, and 3. So I'm going to install these and see if it looks the same as my image. And if so, well, then I guess that's the way they go. There's no markings, nothing, no up, down, nothing of the sort. I do know that if you see these square holes over here, that's because the electronics board goes here. I do like that the power supply is sort of covered, but it's in an acrylic case, so if it were to catch fire, it would just, you know, burn worse. That's why you should never have your 3D printer running without anybody around. Okay, this looks more like the image now. I think we're in business. Okay, now they want you to put the main board on, and I wasn't actually expecting the main board, although it is on the list. So let me grab the main board and I'll bring you back. And here's our power supply in all of its glory. I'm a little conflicted because I'm not sure if this is supposed to mount this way with the USB facing out or this way with these connections facing out, but I think you should be able to use the USB. Okay, so here we go. We'll put these screws in. So the main board looks like it's just approximately this form factor here. So I'm actually going to put them 1, 2. If I can get that one in. Oh, yeah, that won't stay. So maybe I'll put 2 in. Like this. Hold that up. Okay, put 2 spacers on. 1 and 2. Put the main board on. 1 and 2. Put these nuts on loosely. 1 and 2. Okay, and now flip this back over. Put the other stuff in. So lift this up. Put my screw in. Just a little. Put my spacer in. Push my screw through. And then another nut. Don't feel as though these need to be super tight or tightened at all, just so it doesn't rattle around. I don't think this thing's going to go on any road trips with me, so there's that. Okay, now I can flip this around and tighten the screws, as long as they don't go too tight. I don't have a nut driver on the other side, I'm just holding it with my fingers. I really don't want to over tighten this. Okay, looks like power supply and the main board are now installed. Let's move on. So next we have to install our back plate, our side plates 1 and 2, and our middle plate. Actually, this one was the middle plate. And to do that, we need these M3 by 20, 6 of them, and 2 M3 by 2s. And we need our plug here. So this comes pre-wired, but I think I'm going to trim these down to fit better. The other thing I have to say is dry fit everything. So I literally had to go around and put these things in their slots to make sure everything fit properly because what had happened was I didn't notice that the difference between the front and the back are these kind of rectangular holes there. So I had to flip everything upside down and flip it around. So the way I had it mounted before was incorrect. It is mounted correctly now. As you can see, I can put everything together in this middle one here. And everything fits. This plug will go back here. And I think that's what we'll start by doing. We will start by installing the plug onto the back plate. So I'm going to slide this in like this. Now I chose to have the wires coming out this side because it is the first two connections here that will have these plugs engaged. So just going to slide the M3 bolts through. And actually it looks like it doesn't fit that way. It fits the other way. So let's see, can I actually change that? So what if I flip it around to go this way? Can I still have my wires this way? Yeah, thankfully it's a front to back symmetry. Okay, so now I can put these in. It's like the one problem with acrylic is that you not only have to have the upside up and the downside down, left and right have to also be put in the right spot, but also it has to be flipped the correct way around. And a lot of these things look pretty symmetrical. They look like they go one way, but really you have to turn them over and go the other. So I'm just going to hold this and tighten down these bolts. They don't have to be too tight. Definitely need to be tight enough. Okay, and now I'm going to dry fit this in right here. And I'm going to trim these wires back. Since I know that I don't need nearly that much length, I'll probably keep the grounding wire the full length. But for these wires, I just need them very short. I'm going to twist them around like this, so they go around in the bend. And I'm going to go ahead and just snip them just about where my hand is there. Like so. So that when this is installed, like this, my wires have plenty of space to go down here and connect onto these connections. Now they want me to install this now, but I feel as though I won't have too much space to do my other connections because again, the power supply doesn't fit all that great. There's not a lot of room. You can't move the power supply back this way to get more space either. So it's really, I'm not sure why they want you to do it in that order, but I think I'm going to install the power supply wires before I actually install the back plate on. And you guys will see me struggle with the back plate for sure, because they are not exactly the simplest things to install. They use nuts that are stuck inside channels, but the deal is that they're not really that well stuck. And that means they can take quite the effort to line up before they'll actually go in. Okay, so I'm just twisting the wire here. And so red goes to the end here. I can bend this a little bit. Let me open this up. This whole power supply doesn't exactly scream quality either. The problem being, you can't really get anything in there. Okay, so the red wire goes onto our first connection, the ground onto our third, the black onto our second. I'm just going to give them a little twist so they fit better. Let's see here. It's pretty important to get these where there's no like little bits of wire sticking out. I do have my neutral in there, so I'm going to tighten down the neutral. Now from experience, you can't put these in too tight or else they'll crack the actual connection block that they're in. Tighten this down. And then the ground or the earth if you're in Europe somewhere. The earth is actually a better descriptor for it, so that's fine. Okay. So yeah, I guess the connection's not great here. See, there's not much space. It seems as though these wires will be in the way of the positive and negative wires that we need to use later on. So maybe I should have probably left those longer. I can recrimp them, it's not that big of a deal. But yeah, it doesn't seem like there's a lot of space here at all. I might get the positive and negative wires that are provided and hook them in here. So let me get those and I'll be right back.